Two men woke up from unconsciousness only to find themselves tightly tied to stakes, with a talker babbling incessantly beside them.
Saboteurs! Saboteurs! You!
In the next second, Roberta quickly used a stick to silence the talker, and then George hurried to untie Doc and 10K. After they were free, they immediately made a run for it, but then, countless arrows flew towards them, and Doc's but got hit by an arrow as he fled. A group of indigenous people appeared, surrounding Roberta and her companions. Oddly, all of them were women. Roberta then raised her hands in surrender, indicating they meant no harm, and soon they were taken to the tribe. There, they met the female chief, Kuruk, and after some conversation, misunderstandings were cleared. Learning that the newcomers included George, Kuruk quickly led them to a tent. Inside the tent, Kuruk revealed that their village had been attacked by destroyers, leaving few men alive. Only women and children remained. Furthermore, talkers were periodically sabotaging the dam, cutting off the downstream water supply. For the safety of the tribe, she planned to leave this dangerous place, but her father refused to leave, insisting on repairing the dam. At this moment, Kuruk's sister, Ayala, noticed 10K's severed hand and decided to equip him with a handy prosthetic.
I'm not a cook. No.
Pick me.
Maybe this isn't such a good idea.
Eventually, Ayala chose a deer antler for 10K, which could serve both as a gun rest and be fitted with a slingshot. 10K approved of the choice, allowing Ayala to fit the deer antler onto his severed hand. Eager to test its feel, 10K was experimenting with its stability when he suddenly noticed a person in black emerging from the bushes. Opting not to alert the enemy, 10K decided to follow, while Ayala went to inform the others. Meanwhile, Kuruk went to the dam to convince her father, Chief Eddie, to abandon the dam and leave with the tribe. However, Eddie refused, insisting that this place, their ancestral home, could not be so easily abandoned. As 10K followed the person in black into the dam via a different route, it was clear the intruder knew the layout well. The person in black then went to the control room and cut the valves, with 10K arriving just in time to witness this act. Soon after, the dam began to shake. Realizing the severity of the situation, Eddie rushed inside to repair the dam but collided head-on with the person in black, who then threw Eddie off the building. At this moment, Ayala found the unsuccessful Kuruk and informed them about the person in black sneaking into the dam, but without her father's command, the guards would not allow them entry. Ayala mentioned they had a shaman who could perform astral projection into the dam, which sounded far-fetched but was the only option left. After finding the tried shaman and learning the process, Roberta and her companions drank a potion, which soon made them fall unconscious. The next second, Roberta's spirit arrived inside the dam just in time to see the intruder, but he passed right through her. Realizing what happened, Roberta attempted to pursue but was pulled back into her body as the potion wore off, though she had figured out another entrance to the dam. Without delay, Roberta and George headed for the dam's entrance. On the other side, Kuruk's spirit found her fallen father who had stopped breathing due to severe injuries but soon turned into a talker. Eddie, having become a talker, was also able to see the spirit form of Kuruk. Just then, Doc walks into the dam and finds 10K, who has been knocked out by the man in black. He tries to wake 10K, but the spirit simply cannot touch the living. What's worse, because the man in black had damaged the sluice gate, the control room began to overload, and water started seeping in sporadically. Seeing this, Doc, in a moment of desperation, dove into 10K's body and started controlling it.
Right and left. Oh, up we go. Oh, there you go. Oh, we're walking. One more step. Come on, you got this. Good. We got it. Grab it. Good.
Thanks to Doc's relentless efforts, the broken valve was finally closed. However, it wasn't long before the pipes began to leak again. Luckily, at that moment, Eddie, who had turned into a talker, arrived just in time and urged 10K to follow him to shut off the switch. At this moment, Roberta and George arrived inside the dam and happened upon the man in black causing destruction. So, Roberta decisively opened fire. The man in black, seeing this, quickly abandoned his work and fled in panic. Roberta and George also followed closely behind. Just then, Doc and Eddie arrived at the scene, ready to pull the flood release lever to save the dam, but just as Doc was about to do it, 10K woke up.
See you soon, kid.
Meanwhile, George, who was chasing the man in black, was suddenly ambushed. However, George quickly regained his composure and engaged in a fight with the man in black. With his strong combat skills, dealing with a mere talker was no problem for George, but just as George subdued him and was about to interrogate him, the man in black headbutted George away and then pointed the gun at George. In the nick of time, the man in black was shot in the head. Thanks to 10K and Roberta, who had arrived just in time. After emergency repairs, the dam was back to normal, and the creek started flowing downstream again. Chief Eddie, on behalf of all his people, expressed the highest respect to Roberta and the others. Before everyone left, the wizard conveyed a message to Roberta that his grandfather had entrusted to him in a dream.
Seek is buried under the past, but beware, it is guarded by demons with sharp claws.
8 years after the zombie virus outbreak, humans no longer turn into bloodthirsty zombies upon death. Instead, they become talkers with human consciousness. This was a good thing for the survivors, but humans began to enslave the talkers. They provided the talkers with only a small amount of food, to ensure they wouldn't immediately rebel. If they encountered disobedient talkers, they would start beating them, treating talkers as if they were livestock. One day, a talker found a battery in a trash can. Picking it up and smelling it, he felt a sense of comfort. So, he quietly hid and bit the battery open, waiting for the smoke to slowly disperse. The talker was instantly filled with strength. Seeing his fellow talkers being enslaved by humans, he suddenly had a plan. Then, he approached another talker companion. While the guards weren't looking, he found a battery in the trash can and signaled his companion to eat it. Seeing this, the companion did not hesitate and swallowed the battery. In the next second, he also instantly regained his spirit. As the talkers continued to collect batteries, he saw his best talker brother being killed on the spot for not working fast enough. This was truly intolerable, so he gathered a few talkers who had eaten batteries, ready to revolt. A guard saw him standing there not working and approached with a gun, intending to teach him a lesson, but he swiftly dodged it. Then he quickly snatched the guard's gun, and the other talker companions launched an attack at the same moment. The guards were caught off guard and fell to the ground in no time, their arrogance gone. Afterwards, the leading talker initiated the protest.
Our time is now! Yeah! We will be free! Now! Yeah! And we will free every talker enslaved in this mine. We will bring them out into the light by any means necessary!
After a passionate speech, he charged into the mine to rescue other talker companions. He had just entered when screams echoed from inside. The talkers outside, hearing this, were horrified and started shooting into the cave until they ran out of bullets. At that moment, something was thrown out of the cave, and upon closer inspection, it was found to be the head of the talker who had led them, scaring everyone into fleeing. Just like that, they were captured again and continued to be enslaved. At this time, Roberta and her group happened to pass by. They were puzzled and bewildered by these iron claws, wondering what use these pieces of scrap metal could have in the post-apocalyptic world. Roberta decided to investigate. Then, they stealthily made their way to the large truck to check the situation and discovered a group of people in protective suits controlling the talkers to scavenge. It was confirmed that these people were definitely Roman subordinates, but it was unclear what they were doing. So, Roberta had everyone split into 2 teams to investigate. Following the order, Doc and 10K hid behind a tire, where a guard was present. 10K started counting, preparing to take the guard by surprise, but in the next second, the guard was suddenly pulled into the scrap metal, followed by a gush of blood, leaving Doc and 10K stunned. Then they hurried over and found a huge hole. Just as they were puzzled, they completely failed to notice a shadow swiftly passing behind them.
Let's go find those trucks.
On the other side, Roberta and George successfully arrived inside the mine, where many talkers were enslaved. Roberta thought they should first investigate what was being collected in the iron barrels, but with all the barrels guarded, they wondered how they could get close. Hearing this, George said she had a good idea. she quickly ran forward, started stripping the talkers of their hats and clothes. Before talkers could react, she was gone. Then George took the chance to blend into the group of talkers, while Roberta immediately climbed to a higher spot to cover George. Afterward, George secretly filled her pockets with the contents of the barrels, but this also attracted the guards' attention. Just as George was about to be exposed, a piece of iron fell down, and the guards immediately ordered to open fire. At this moment, Roberta accidentally fell into a pile of trash. George took the opportunity to run towards Roberta while the guards were distracted. When she arrived, Roberta had already disappeared into the dark trash hole. Roberta woke up from unconsciousness to find herself in a deep trash hole. Surrounded by broken copper and iron, she held her breath and slowly walked forward, only to discover a corpse ahead of her. Roberta cautiously crouched down to see the face of the deceased, but when she removed the mask, she found the person's head had been severed. Then, Roberta quickly picked up a gun nearby, only to find its barrel had been forcefully bent. With no other choice, Roberta surveyed the area, noticing a table piled with various electronic devices and a chainsaw covered in blood. The sight sent chills down her spine, making her wonder if she had stumbled into a madman's lair. Meanwhile, George was shouting for Roberta at the hole's entrance. At that moment, a guard noticed George and aimed a gun at her, urging her to work. With the gun pointed at her, George had no choice but to temporarily give up searching for Roberta. George was then taken to the mine. Because there was a group of guards nearby, she couldn't resist, so George had no choice but to obediently follow the talkers into the mine. On the other side, 10K and Doc sneaked into the processing plant, where they found conveyor belts full of batteries, all being thrown into a vat to melt. Shortly after, the batteries turned into a block of lithium metal, which the workers then threw into water to cool. They proceeded with caution, knowing processing lithium blocks could cause severe harm to humans, so Doc and 10K quickly left the area. Then, they arrived at the control room, and as soon as they approached, they were met with the smell of blood. The sight that greeted them was even more horrifying. The control room was a scene of carnage, with blood sprayed everywhere. The blood had not yet coagulated, indicating that everything had happened only recently. Despite the horror, Doc and 10K bravely entered. 10K wondered who could have done this, and Doc, examining the clues, concluded it must have been a tall creature. The scene shifts back to Roberta, who was desperately clearing metal sheets, trying to find a way out, but only to reveal more metal, driving her to despair and forcing her to look for another escape. At that moment, the creature returned home. A steel creature dragged a guard in, approached the workbench, and removed its coat, revealing a body made of mechanical skeletons. It then inserted a battery into its arm, powering up the mechanical skeleton. After that, it fitted the chainsaw onto its hand, resembling a chainsaw maniac. At that moment, Roberta pretended to be a corpse and narrowly escaped danger. Suddenly, she realized that the man who had just been dragged in was still alive. Gasping for air loudly, the creature then turned its attention towards them, causing Roberta to hold her breath. In the next second, the guard was dragged away and brutally killed. Elsewhere, George entered the mine searching for Roberta's traces. A talker stopped George, advising her not to go further, but George, eager to rescue Roberta, disregarded the warning and continued her search. Meanwhile, Doc and 10K were in the control room looking for traces of Roberta and curiously pressed a button on the console, unfortunately turning a talker into an unlucky victim.
Oops.
Their actions attracted the guards, but 10K quickly shut the door. Soon after changing clothes, they opened the heavy steel door, but the guard did not recognize them. Doc bluffed that they were sent to expedite the work, and surprisingly, the guard believed him. After Doc's smooth talk, the guard left, reassured. The scene returns to Roberta, who took advantage of the creature's departure to hurriedly look for an exit. Just then, noises came from ahead, and Roberta immediately grabbed a nearby metal pipe. When the metal sheet was pushed aside, to her surprise, it was George who emerged. The shock of the day nearly stopped Roberta's heart. Then, they started crawling along the tunnel towards the outside, but as soon as they reached the entrance, they were discovered.
What do you want from us?